I am 92 years old, and before I say anything else, I want to ask you something very simple but very important. So pause for just a second and answer it honestly in your head or even in the comments if you feel brave enough. How old are you, and where in the world are you watching this from right now? Because whether you are 18 or 48 or 65, the truth I'm about to share does not wait for anyone. And I know that because I have lived long enough to see time take everything it wants without asking for permission. And I remember being young. I remember being strong. I remember thinking I had later. And if you are over 40, watching this, I already know what you are thinking. You are thinking that you still have time, that you are not old yet, that serious reflection can wait. But let me tell you something. No one told me when I was your age. Life does not announce when it shifts. It does not send you a warning when the last chapter quietly begins. It just slowly changes its pace until one day you wake up and realize decades have passed and the mirror is showing you someone you don't recognize. And if you think 92 is far away, I promise you it is not, because I still remember my 40s like they were last week. I remember rushing everywhere, always busy, always tired, always chasing something I thought mattered. And I want you to understand this clearly. The greatest lie you have been told is that you have time, because time is not something you own. It is something you borrow, and it can be taken back without notice. And I know you might be watching this on your phone while half listening, maybe sitting on a couch, maybe on a break at work, maybe late at night when your thoughts get heavy. So let me ask you another question. When was the last time you felt truly present, not distracted, not worried about tomorrow, not replaying yesterday, but actually here? Because most people don't realize they are absent from their own lives until it's almost over, and I don't want that for you. I don't want you to reach my age and suddenly understand that the things you worried about were small, the people you ignored were precious, and the moments you rushed through were the ones that mattered most. And if you are over 40, there is something else you need to hear, something uncomfortable. Your body will change faster than your mind is ready for. One day you will lift something and feel pain that doesn't leave. One day you will wake up tired even after sleeping. And one day you will realize your energy is no longer endless. And I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this because I wish someone had scared me a little earlier, because maybe then I would have slowed down. Maybe then I would have listened more, loved deeper, forgiven sooner, and chosen differently. And let me ask you this, and be honest, are you living the life you thought you would be living by now? Or are you just surviving, moving from one obligation to the next, telling yourself you'll start really living after this year, after this problem, after this responsibility, because I told myself those same words for decades, and decades disappear faster than you think. And here is the hardest truth I've learned in 92 years. No one remembers how busy you were. No one remembers how much money you chased. But they remember how you made them feel, and even more painfully, you remember how you failed to show up when it mattered. And if you're listening to me right now, it's not an accident, because something inside you already knows that time is slipping, that something needs to change, and I want you to stay with me, because in the next part, I am going to tell you what truly matters before it's too late, not the things people post online, not the advice from books written by people who haven't lived long enough to lose everything, but the quiet truths that only reach you when most of your life is already behind you. So before you continue, type your age, and where you're watching from, because acknowledging where you are is the first step toward not wasting what comes next. Now that you're still here, let me speak to you the way I wish someone had spoken to me when I was over 40, because by that age you are standing at a crossroads. Whether you realize it or not, one path is louder, faster, more exhausting, full of expectations, pressure, and comparison, and the other path is quieter, slower, and harder to choose because it requires honesty. And most people don't choose it until their bodies force them to stop. And I want to ask you something deeply personal. Who are you trying to impress right now? Because I promise you that by the time you reach my age, every single person you tried to impress will be gone or irrelevant, and the only voice left will be your own. Asking whether you lived truthfully or just followed the noise. And I can tell you this with certainty, the regrets that haunt you at 92 are not about failure. They are about absence, about conversations you avoided, love you withheld, forgiveness you delayed, and time you traded for things that never loved you back. And if you are over 40 and watching this, you are not too late, but you are no longer early. And that distinction matters more than you think, because this is the age where someday quietly turns into maybe, and then into never. And I know you might be thinking about your responsibilities, your family, your bills, your past mistakes, and you might be telling yourself that it's unrealistic to change now. But let me tell you something radical. Your life does not require permission to change. It only requires courage. And courage is not loud. It's quiet. It's choosing to tell the truth, to rest without guilt, to walk away from what drains you, and to finally ask yourself what kind of old person you want to become. Because whether you like it or not, you are becoming someone right now, and every small choice is shaping that future version of you. And here is something no one talks about. Loneliness does not begin in old age. It begins much earlier when you stop being honest with yourself, when you surround yourself with noise instead of connection, when you are too busy to feel. And if you want to avoid that kind of loneliness, start now. Start listening, start simplifying, start choosing people over pride, health over hustle, peace over proving. And let me ask you one last question, and please don't skip past it. If you were 92 years old today, sitting where I am, looking back at your current life, what would you beg yourself to change? Because whatever that answer is, that's where your attention needs to go. Not tomorrow, not next year, but now. And if you've made it this far, it means part of you is ready. And I want you to remember this above all else. A good life is not built by intensity. It's built by consistency, by showing up, by loving imperfectly but sincerely, and by not waiting until it's too late to say what matters. So if this message reached you, take it seriously. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments your age and where you're watching from. Because no matter how old you are, as long as you are breathing, there is still something meaningful you can choose today. I am 92 years old. And at this stage of life, there is a strange clarity that comes not from knowing everything, but from finally knowing what does not matter. And I want you to listen closely to this part, because it's the part most people never hear until it's too late. And let me begin by asking you something uncomfortable. When was the last time you sat in silence without reaching for a screen, without distracting yourself, without trying to escape your own thoughts? Because silence is where the truth waits, and most people run from it their entire lives. And I did too. I filled my days with noise, responsibility, urgency, and people's expectations, thinking that staying busy meant staying alive. But what I didn't understand then is that busyness can slowly erase you. And if you are over 40 watching this, you are likely already tired in a way sleep does not fix. Tired of proving, tired of explaining yourself, tired of chasing stability that never quite feels secure. And I want you to know that this tiredness is not weakness. It is a signal, a quiet request from your soul asking you to pay attention. Because the most painful thing I see now, at 92, is not death itself, but how many people never truly lived before it arrived. How many spent their best years postponing joy, postponing honesty, postponing rest, always waiting for the right time. And let me be very clear with you. The right time does not come. It is chosen. And I wish someone had told me that earlier, because maybe I would have stopped arguing sooner, stopped holding grudges that stole years from me, stopped staying in places and roles that slowly dimmed my spirit. And here is another question for you. Who have you not forgiven yet? And how much of your energy is still tied to the past? Because carrying old pain into the future is one of the heaviest burdens a person can choose, and it ages you faster than time ever will. And if you think forgiveness is about excusing what happened, it's not. It's about freeing yourself before your heart becomes too tired to open again. And I want to talk to you about fear, because fear quietly shapes more lives than failure ever does. Fear of being judged, fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of choosing differently than everyone else. And I lived with those fears for decades, not realizing they were making decisions for me while I convinced myself I was being responsible. And if you are listening right now, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what am I afraid to change? And what is that fear costing me every single year? Because by the time you reach my age, you will understand this deeply. Regret does not come from trying and failing. It comes from never trying at all, from staying silent when you should have spoken, from settling when your heart knew better, and from loving halfway to protect yourself. And let me tell you something gentle but true. Life becomes simpler when you stop negotiating with what hurts you, when you stop explaining your boundaries, when you stop shrinking to be tolerated. And I know this sounds difficult, especially if you have spent years being the strong one, the reliable one, the one who keeps everything together. But strength without care turns into exhaustion. And exhaustion turns into bitterness if you don't listen early enough. And as I sit here at 92, what I treasure most are not achievements or titles, but ordinary moments I once overlooked. The sound of laughter in another room, a meal shared slowly, a hand held without words. And I wish I had known that happiness is quieter than we are taught, that it doesn't shout or demand attention. It waits patiently for us to stop running. And before this part ends, I want to leave you with one final question, one that truly matters. If your life slowed down tomorrow, if everything you chase paused for just 1 week, who would you be without your roles, your stress, your distractions, and would you like that person? Because that answer tells you everything you need to know about what must change next. And if this message resonates with you, don't ignore it. Don't scroll past it. Don't promise yourself you'll think about it later, because later is a fragile promise. And I want you to write in the comments your age and where you're watching from, not for me, but for yourself, as a small act of presence, because the greatest gift you can give your future self is attention today.